Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's live stream news summary from Moscow program. It is 9th of December, 1 p.m. Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and I hope you will find this show basically. Let's call it as a teaser. It's a show, right? News show or talk show. So I hope you will find this show informative, interesting, useful. And in that case, please click that like button and leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm. And right now, I will drop on YouTube in the chat a link to my Rumble channel. I am streaming on both platforms simultaneously, as you know, dear friends. So we'll will be good if some members of our bigger community on YouTube continue watching this update on Rumble, because I think it is very important for me personally, at least, to further develop, try as much as I can to develop better way my Rumble channel, because yet again on YouTube there is very few channels from Russia that still remains, including my, and I could be kicked off from this platform literally at any day without warning. So please subscribe to my Rumble channel, and whenever you can, watch my videos there. Will be helpful for sure. And well, after news segment, if you want to discuss any topic, please use support platforms that you can see links to under this video in description box to send a question or the commentary. And of course, I will react on it after news segment. And also, you can use super chat or rant feature on Rumble for this very purpose. And I know, dear friends, Duran is online right now. They have a show, and I was watching until very last moment. I was listening to Alexander. Always interesting show, of course, that they have. Although I have to disagree on a point that I have to disagree with them on a point that well, all these games that Washington is engaged now in regards to Zelensky, how they are not removing this puppet, basically that is owned by Washington, right, big time, and explanation that, well, U.S. government is just too complicated and complex, and there's all sorts of interests, and that's why it's not that easy, and that's why Washington is engaged in all sorts of games. Well, I'm not really buying into it, because any government is complex there, and influenced by certain groups of interests, right? This is happening not just in US, but in Russia, in China, in India, in UK, in France, Germany. Just name the country. It's the same stuff everywhere. Some might be a little more complex, some might be a little less complex, but governments are not simple stuff, isn't it? And Washington is not removing Zelensky and didn't remove Zelensky by now only because Washington is not honest in negotiations with Russia. That's about it. Washington is engaged in a deception together with the European capitals. They are engaged in a deception operation. That's it, man. They want to mislead Russia and create this false narrative that, well, you know what, we are for the escalation, you see, but what those ones, I mean, those ones are just creating some obstacles, and but we are good ones. No, man, it does not work this way, right? And that's why I'm saying never ever Moscow should trust anybody from US leadership or from European leadership, ever, right? Period, man. There is not even anything to discuss after that. That's it, man, right? If sometime in the future, in 50 years from now, 100 years from now, local communities in the US, American citizens, or in Europe, citizens of France, Germany, UK, and other countries managed finally to reclaim their own country, build their decent system, political system, which will allow decent people to be part of it, right? In that case, yes, trust can be rebuilt for sure, because we are not natural enemies, for God's sake. We should cooperate instead of being hostile. Obviously, it's just basics, but Yet again, this is not happening today and tomorrow, and I don't think this is happening in upcoming decade or two even, right? Because communities in the Western countries are not even in position to rebel. Actually, they need revolutions, right? All over the Western world, they need true revolutions, man. That's the only way you can demolish these absolutely corrupt systems and absolutely corrupt so-called elites that they have. Without a revolution, there is no changes that are necessary. Without revolution, Western societies would not be able to reclaim their own country and have a say in their own fate, in their own future, and in the future of their kids and the grandkids, right? It is what it is. That's how I think, anyways, right? But okay, I know, dear friends, it is difficult to compete with the big channels, massive channels, and Uran is, of course, a leading projector in alternative media, and I have a great deal of respect to Alex and Alexander. I'm in this field of news and political commentary. I find in myself courage to start working on this field thanks to their programs. And I have said this quite a number of times. So I'm going to be forever grateful for them. And yes, time to time, there are some topics that we might disagree. But nevertheless, they are great leaders of their community, Alex and Alexander. And they deserve all the respect from all of us, right, that they are getting. Okay. Nevertheless, I have to do my job, by the way. I have to go ahead now with the news segment. And so let's start. As I said, I have prepared quite a number of news. And well, I will start with unfortunate developing story, that Russian AN-22 transport plane crashed in Ivanovo region. As I said, this is developing story and not much is known about the situation. All we know at this point is that according to preliminary reports, AN-22 plane crashed in the Ivanovo region. There were 7 people on board. Rescuers have arrived at the scene of the emergency. The crash occurred near the Uvatskoye reservoir, water reservoir, and the fragments of the aircraft were found floating in the water. The AN-22 was reportedly on a routine test flight following repairs. The plane was on the routine test flight following repairs. The crash site is located near the Uvatskoye reservoir, and the fragments of the plane were found floating in the water. TASS news agencies is reporting. Unfortunate development, of course, no details at this point, and as you can see, dear friends, there are no information about fate of the people that were on board of the plane. Hopefully, they all survived. Hopefully. Some other news now, and let me share with you this report from also TASS news agency that 14 civilians were injured in Cheboksary during the last night's drone attacks that was conducted by Kyiv regime. Overall, by the way, 121 drones were intercepted by Russian air defense systems on duty, according to Defense Ministry's update. Let me give you some details on that. So, air defense forces shut down 121 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. According to reports, latest data, 14 people were, including a child, were injured during the drone attacks in Cheboksary. This is Chuvashia region, I believe, by the way. When it comes to scale of this attack, between 11 p.m. Moscow time on December 8th, yesterday, and 7 a.m. this morning, air defense forces, as I already said, intercepted 121 drones that was launched by NATO and NATO proxy. Kyiv regime, according to Defense Ministry, 49 drones were intercepted in the Belgorod region, 22 drones over the Crimea, 10 drones over the Ryazan region, 9 over Voronezh, 8 over Caspian Sea, 5 each over the Rostov region and the Republic of Kalmykia, 4 over the Nizhny Novgorod region, 3 over the Lipetsk region, 2 drones each over the Kursk region and Krasnodar Krai, 1 each in the Bryansk and the Tula regions. And when it comes to consequences, what is known for now, at least what TASS news agency is reporting, is that, well, according to latest reports, 14 people, including child, were injured in a drone attack on the Cheboksary, Chuvash Republic. Deputy Prime Minister Vladimir Stepanov reported on his Telegram channel. They are provided with all the necessary medical care. There was also damage to residential buildings. Regional Governor Oleg Nikolaev reported on a Telegram. According to the head of the Republic, emergency services are working in area eliminating consequences of the and ensuring the safety of the people. Residents are being provided with all the necessary assistance, and all damaged residential premises will be restored. And if I will show you on the map, dear friends, where Cheboksary is located, it's a far east side than, let's say, Moscow, right? I'll try now on this map to find Cheboksary, by the way. And I want to show you a location. I want to show you a location because I think a strike in this direction was conducted from Kazakhstani territory. I think strike in this direction was conducted from Kazakhstani territory because it's just too far away from Kiev-controlled territory. And I believe this is the Cheboksary, right? So this is the city of Cheboksary that you see right now on the bank of Volga river, right? And take a look at the map where Cheboksary is, where Kiev control territory is, and how closer, relatively close, obviously, Kazakhstan territory is. And there was numerous occasions when strikes were conducted towards Russian regions that are quite far away from Kiev control territory. And my personal take is that Kiev regime and its British allies are using Kazakhstani territory to launch these drones. And I remind you, dear friends, that a couple of weeks ago, one Ukrainian drone was actually found on the Kazakhstani soil, drone that failed and crashed. So my words, I have indicators, bulletproof indicators actually, to prove my point. How this drone, Ukrainian drone, Ukrainian British drone, end up in the Kazakhstani soil? You tell me. It was just some malfunction in a drone. It fell down and crashed, and that's the explanation that I have personally. And to take a look at the map, dear friends, Kazakhstan has massive border with Russia. Kazakhstan was a second republic in the Soviet Union with a land mass. It's a huge area, and I can understand that Kazakhstani law enforcement agencies, Kazakhstani security forces are unable to control all the territory, right? But at least there has to be acknowledgement. At least has to be acknowledgement on a part of Kazakhstan leadership that Kiev regime and its NATO backers, first of all, United Kingdom, are using that territory to conduct these terrorist attacks on Russia. Ignoring the issue is not helping. Ignoring the issue is definitely not helping. And I'm never gonna believe that drones that are targeting Russian regions 1,000 kilometer away, 1,500 kilometer away from Kiev controlled territory are launched actually from somewhere in a Kiev area or Kharkov region or something like that. No. Whenever you see reports that drones being intercepted in the Leningrad region or in some even further north regions of the Russia, whenever you see reports that drones being intercepted in Siberia somewhere, close to Ural Mountains and so on, only logical explanation I can come up with is that in case of northern regions, NATO states were used, NATO quasi-states were used for these attacks. First of all, Estonia and Finland, although Lithuania and Latvia are no any better, obviously. And whenever there are drones on a southern, eastern, and in the far eastern side of Russia that were intercepted, I'm quite sure Kazakhstani territory was used. for those strikes. And yet again, this silence is not helping. Silence on either Moscow's side, by the way, or Astana's side is not helping. I'm quite sure Russian militaries, Russian intelligence know perfectly well that in some cases these Baltic Chihuahua states are used for the strikes, and in some cases Kazakhstan is on. Right? Why we are not talking about it? I don't know. We should address the issue, right? So another 14 civilians, by information that we have right now, another 14 Russian civilians were injured, harmed by NATO strike last night. And if you want to know more details, relatively more details about terrorist activity of this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, yesterday I did mention this report, for example, from Russian Foreign Ministry that UN International Court of Justice has dismissed all of Kiev's objections and accepted Russia's counterclaims under the Genocide Convention. This follows the ICJ's earlier ruling rejecting every accusation Ukraine tried to level against Russia. Now the court will examine evidences submitted by Moscow, and this is, over the 10,000 pages documenting mass killings committed by NATO and the NATO proxy Kiev regime, tortures, indiscriminate shellings, and other crimes that our enemies of Russia committed. Yet again, NATO countries and their proxy Kiev regime. And I can give you even more specifics. Russian high-ranking diplomat Miroshnik stated that 41,000 people were injured, by the way, as a result of terrorist activity of Western-backed regime. In Kiev, 13,000 people were killed, civilians. We are talking about civilians now. Do you hear anything about it if you are living, especially if you are living in the Western world? Did you hear anything about 41,000 civilians being injured since the 2014, that is? Way before Russia launched special military operation. Did you hear anything in the Western so-called media or the public sphere about these atrocities that were committed by the regime? That 41,000 civilians were injured and 13,000 civilians were killed. I'm quite sure you have not heard nothing about it in the West. Definitely not for MSM or the political class there. In alternative media, probably some channels did report about atrocities that the regime was committing since 2014. But MSM and political class, public field is quite about it, correct? And Russia was investigators in Donbass, by the way, since 2014. And when these regions become part of Russia, Russian investigators were documenting every single case, I would say most of the cases, let's say this way, of atrocities committed by the regime. And now UN International Court of Justice will go through these 10,000 pages of documented mass killings, torture, and indiscriminate shellings and other crimes committed by, yet again, NATO countries and the Kiev regime. Maybe world community will learn some more about who they are that we are fighting with. Either Western elites, so-called, or the Western ruling class, and their proxies in Kiev. Maybe world will know a little better them, right? TASS news agency is also reporting that the head of Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, reported the liberation of the southern parts of Dmitrov. So Dmitrov is Mirnograd, yes. So Russian armed forces have liberated the southern part of the town of Dmitrov, which is Mirnograd, located right next to Pokrovsk, which is already liberated by Russian forces, accounting for more than 30% of the city's total buildings. This was announced by Chief of General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Army General Valery Gerasimov, during an inspection of the Center Group's command or combat missions. Right, so Approximately 30% of buildings in Mirnograd are under Russian control now, mostly on the southern part of the city, right? And Russian troops are advancing in the northern part of the city also. Although, as I said many times before, of course, Russian troops will take whatever time is necessary while finalizing the clearing operation. I have some update about Mirnograd that I will share in a minute, but also we have this report, dear friends, from TASS news agency that Russian armed forces liberated Novodanilovka settlement in Zaporozhye region, which is a big deal, by the way, very big deal, right? Settlement is located on the southern side of Orekhov, central areas of the Zaporozhye sector, and I predicted, isn't it, that it will not take too long before Novodanilovka will be liberated by Russian troops. I was constantly reporting about progress in this area, and now we have this breaking news, even I will say, in terms of Zaporozhye sector, and also Russian armed forces liberated Chervona settlement in Donetsk People's Republic. This is happening in just past 24 hours. That's when Defense Ministry confirmed this information. And on top of that, we have this report that Russian armed forces also liberated Astapovska settlement in the Dnipropetrovsk region. And well, if I may, let me now go through map and show you all the areas that I just mentioned, and there are some and share information about some others too. So when it comes to Kherson, let's start with Kherson region. So when it comes to Kherson region, your friends, lately, even though on the ground there might be no major changes right now in terms of line of contact, but lately, in past several days, Russian armed forces significantly increase their level of airstrikes in Kherson direction, level of artillery strikes. Something is going on there. Something is going on there, and already some experts are beginning to predict that maybe Russia is about to launch some sectoral scale offensive on the right bank, towards the right bank of the Dnieper River in the Kherson region. So maybe this is going to happen, maybe not, but I'm just letting you know that Russian militaries, Russian Air Force, and their artillery did become very active in Kherson direction. So maybe in upcoming days, something big is about to happen in this area. In Zaporozhye direction, your friends, well, Russian troops are finalizing clearing operation in Stepnogorsk still, according to reports. In town, in these high-rise apartment buildings, significant number of Kiev regime's troops are blocked, right? But reports are that city itself is completely encircled by Russian forces. Once Sipnogorsk will be fully liberated, well, one might argue that operational space will open for Russian troops, and from that point on, we might start talking about Russian offensive in Zaporozhye direction itself, right? There is still about 20 kilometers from Sipnogorsk to Zaporozhye, right? But 20 kilometers, even for modern drones, is nothing, right? It's nothing. So some significant developments to be expected in the most western flank of Zaporozhye sector. In the central part, of course, main stronghold of the Kiev regime is Orekhov, and this is Novodanilovka settlement that I was predicting that going to be liberated in coming days. I was predicting for the last several days about it, and that's exactly what happened. Russian troops established full control over Novodanilovka, and right now, if you take a look at the map, dear friends, Russian troops are approached Orekhov from southern eastern side, from Malaya Takmachka settlement, which is also under Russian control for about a month now, right? And now Russian troops are approaching from the southern side also, Orekhov. I'm quite sure Russian DRGs already are operating in the vicinity of their city, and I guess before we will see major offensive in Orekhov direction itself to liberate the city, Russian troops will launch offensive, local scale offensive in direction of Novoandreevka settlement, which is located on the southern western side of Orekhov. So in upcoming days, probably we will start receiving reports about Russian advances in Novoandreevka also. And once Novoandreevka is in Russian hands, then, well, definitely we can start talking about offensive on Orekhov. Russian troops from these three directions will launch a final assault on Orekhov, and I don't think local garrison gonna be able to hold on to their positions. Local garrison of Western backed terrorist regime of Zelensky gonna be able to hold on to positions for a while, for a long time. And when it comes to Gulyai Polye, by the way, offensive operations military operations are already happening inside the city itself, and Russian troops are finalizing clearing operation on the most eastern and the southern parts of the city. I guess before end of this week, some 20, 30, at least 20, 30% of the Gulyai Polye are going to be in Russian hands, going to be fully liberated, potentially even more. Kiev regime did deploy in this direction significant number of whatever reserves they have there left, but I don't think those reserves gonna slow down Russian troops very much. I mentioned already about liberation of settlement in past 24 hours in Dnipropetrovsk region also, and this is the settlement, by the way, Ostapovskaya. This is the area that we talking about, and well, this is Dnipropetrovsk region, and take a look at the map, dear friends. This red line is a border between on one side between Zaporozhye and on another side, on eastern side, DPR regions and the Dnipropetrovsk region. And look at the bridgehead that Russian military has created. And this is happening in just like past several weeks, right? 4, 5, 6 weeks about. When Russian troops start conducting offensive operations and creating a bridgehead in the Dnipropetrovsk region. And already area under Russian control is quite massive. Now we have this settlement being liberated by Russian forces. I guess offensive will continue, and soon these settlements around Ostapovskaya also will become under full Russian control. And yet again, let me remind you, dear friends, that Dnipropetrovsk region, unlike DPR, for example, is not as heavily fortified. Dnipropetrovsk region mainly is a steppe area. There is not that level of urbanization there as it is in DPR, for example. And once Russian troops will finalize preparation of the ground for a sectoral scale offensive, and once order comes, I think Russian troops will move very fast in the Dnipropetrovsk region, uncomparably faster than in other sectors of the front line that Kiev regime was preparing, and NATO, by the way, were preparing for a war since 2014. Dnipropetrovsk region is different, and Russian advance is going to be much more rapid there than anywhere else, right, that we see until now. Also, when it comes to DPR now, I already said that Pokrovsk is under full Russian control. Southern part of Mirnograd, neighboring city, by the way, also is under Russian control, and now clearing operation is happening in the northern part of the city. And when it comes to Mirnograd, by the way, some Ukrainian channels, some Ukrainian sources are reporting that allegedly, and yet again, this is Ukrainian sources, so we should take it with a pinch of salt. I don't trust a single word that comes out from Kiev-controlled territory. But nevertheless, I just want to inform you that there are some claims from Ukrainian side that allegedly encircled garrison of Kiev regime from this northern part of Mirnograd did manage to escape, significant part of it at least. There are different reports, according to some, about 1,000 troops of Kiev regime managed to escape. I find it very difficult to believe this report that suddenly 1,000 troops rushed to break out of their encirclement, and they succeeded. But anything is possible. If you remember, dear friends, I was saying on several occasions that maybe in attempt to minimize casualties among Russian troops, maybe some negotiations will be held between Russian military leadership and their key regime, and maybe Russian troops will allow key regime's forces to escape, to retreat, basically, to leave Mirnograd. And you might say, why would you do this? Isn't it? You have 1,000 to 2,000. There's different reports. Troops of hostile side encircled. Why you don't destroy all of them? Why you will allow them to escape, right? And the logic behind it could be, as I already said, to minimize casualties among Russian troops. That's one big reason, obviously. And you might say then you can have a counter argument that what, those troops that you just allow to escape will end up on the line of contact again, and you will have to fight them after some time still, which is true in most cases, but not complete. It's not gonna be exactly like that, because those encircled troops, if these reports are correct, and if somehow significant portion of encircled garrison of Kiev regime managed to withdraw, well, almost all of them probably have some issues with the concussion. Many of them are wounded, and all of them are broken, by the way. All of them are broken psychologically, right? And you think in a month or two, or even 3 or 5 months time, these mentally destroyed, psychologically destroyed troops gonna regain battle capabilities? I mean, seriously, I don't think so. Most likely, those troops that maybe escaped from Mirnograd will serve once they will recover from whatever issues they are facing. Once they will recover, probably they will use in some logistics or some other directions, right? But no longer on the front line, because I don't think they will ever regain actual battle capabilities. Have you seen what is happening when FAB 1500 strikes? Or have you seen what is happening when FAB 3000 strikes? Everyone in certain radius of this explosion has a concussion. Everyone that survives has at least concussion. They need long treatment for that. And everyone who sees aftermath of those strikes needs psychological help, because they are seeing how entire units of their comrades just evaporated. In best case scenario, they might find some fragments of those troops, right? Can you imagine level of psychological level of impact on psychology that will have on troops, when those troops day in day out more and more are scared of any sound whatsoever, because they are beginning to think that any sound they hear is a FAB strike is coming, right? So for how long now these troops experiencing this immense pressure on the psyche? They're not going to be battle capable, by the way, anytime soon or ever, right? And yet again, I am not saying, because Russian officials never confirmed, did not confirm nothing about. There are not even reports in Russian segment of internet about partially or somehow some parts of Kiev regime's garrison from Mirnograd escaping. But if there was a behind the closed door, let's say, negotiations between the militaries of two sides, and if Russia even allow some troops to leave their Mirnograd, yet again, first of all, to minimize casualty numbers among Russian troops, that will make sense, by the way, I will say. I would not be critical of such a decision, because yet again, we will save health and the lives of our troops by doing so, when we know perfectly well that these Kiev regime's units that potentially, maybe left their area, not gonna be battle capable ever in their lives, most likely, majority of them, vast majority of them, right? So maybe, by the way, if information is confirmed and if Kiev regime's garrison mostly left Mirnograd, northern part of Mirnograd, then I guess we might see finalization of the clearing operation of their town, or maybe even before end of this week, because they're gonna be very few troops of Kiev regime left in the town, right, to do some resistance. So that will be indicator. If Russian troops will finalize clearing operation before end of this week, let's say, then in that case we will have a good enough indicator to say that probably there was some talks behind the scenes, and a significant part of this encircled garrison was allowed to escape. But that's my take on all this story that you might or might not hear on other platforms, by the way. I just shared my take on that. Next is Konstantinovka. Konstantinovka, by the way, let's talk about these directions. Yesterday I reported, and there all the time, now last several days, I'm literally on daily basis reporting about progress of the Russian forces on the northern side of Konstantinovka. Russian troops established control over the Klinovaya, over their Bizimyana. Russian troops are getting closer, and probably battles already are taking place for Izhevka settlement. Soon Russian troops going to cut this main supply and support line that connects Drushkovka with the Konstantinovka. And this is a settlement of Chirvone, by the way. This is settlement of Chirvone that has been liberated in past 24 hours. Or let me be more specific, Russian Defense Ministry confirmed in past 24 hours liberation of Chirvone. In reality, maybe this settlement is liberated like 3 days ago, but we didn't knew about it because there was no reports. But we know how Russian Defense Ministry operates, isn't it? Sometimes they might take a week even, and there was such instances. If you remember, when we all know that there is too many reports, right, from alternative sources that Russian troops already established control over this settlement and that settlement and that settlement, but Russian Defense Ministry is saying nothing. So day passes, 2, 3, 4 week passes, and only then Russian Defense Ministry will say that yes, Russian forces, as a result of active offensive operations, liberated this and that settlement. This happens every now and then, by the way, because yet again, I don't know what is the calculus behind it, but Defense Ministry is a very conservative institution, and they always take time before making some announcements, right? Also, dear friends, Seversk direction, of course, when it comes to DPR. Well, let me finish on Konstantinovka. I think, as I mentioned already before, Russian troops will establish control over their northern part of a city that is divided by river Krivoy Tarets. I think Russian troops will establish control over their northern part of their city first, and then will begin clearing operation in the southern side. It seems logical to me to go this way, but we will find out. Initiative is in Russian hands, of course, and there are now northern part of DPR where also very significant developments are taking place. In last 24 to 48 hours, according to reports, by the Russian armed forces established control over the most of their Seversk city, over the most of it. And surprisingly, this map, by the way, is following the developments in this direction. And look, most of the city is already in a gray zone. And Russian troops are in the central part. Russian troops are advancing all over the place, right? And who knows, maybe even before end of this week, Seversk will be under full Russian control. Seems like the regime's garrison in Seversk is just crushed, collapsing in absolute terms, right? Most definitely Seversk will be liberated before end of this month, before end of this year, but when I see reports about Russian progress in this area, and when I see developments on the map, well, I was a bit surprised. I knew Russian troops were in the northern parts of the city, in the eastern parts, in the southern parts, but suddenly in the last 24 hours, we learned that Russian troops actually controlled more than 50% of the city. So that came as a little surprise. So due to this rapid advance, no one should be surprised if Russian troops will liberate entire city by end of this week even. Also, Russian troops entered their Zakatnaya settlement in between Seversk and Liman. And these are two major strongholds of Kiev regime in the northern parts of DPR, Donetsk People's Republic. And clearing operation is underway in this settlement, Zakatnaya. Let's see how long it will take before Russian troops will finalize this clearing operation. But this is not all, dear friends. Russian troops are finalizing clearing operation also between Zakatnaya and Serebranka, parts of Serebranka forestry. Right, this part that you see right now on your screen, massive clearing operation is underway in that area, and also Russian troops are intensifying clearing operation in forestry on the southern eastern side of Liman city. And take a look at the map, dear friends. It's a massive, very difficult terrain, massive forestry that you see right now. Just look at this, man. It's massive, isn't it? And there are some settlements inside the forestry itself. And for example, we have now reports that Russian troops entered Dibrova settlement that is located exactly in this forest. And the northern and eastern parts of Dibrova are under Russian control now. And based on the speed of advances of the Russian armed forces, I'm not gonna be surprised if before end of this week, both these settlements, Zakatnaya and Dibrova, are gonna be liberated by Russian forces. So situation for Kiev regime's garrison, not just in Seversk, but also in Liman, is becoming more and more difficult. And once Russian troops establish control over these major strongholds, Seversk and Liman, then one might argue that a road towards Slavyansk is open. Road towards Slavyansk from the northeastern side. And this is Slavyansk, by the way. You know, Slavyansk Kramatorsk is basically last major fortified area at this point that Kiev regime still controls. Kiev regime and their NATO allies still control in the DPR, Slavyansk Kramatorsk agglomeration. So significant developments are happening there. And well, when it comes to Kharkov region, mainly news is coming from southeastern side of Kupiansk city. Kiev regime's forces on regular basis are conducting counteroffensives, local-scale counterattacks. They want to enter the city and establish their presence there, but they are failing time after time. And well, I guess to finalize clearing operation on the left bank of the Oskol River in this area that you see right now on your screen, I guess Russian side will deploy some reserves, right? Because it's taking quite a time now, really, and to secure Kupiansk, probably we will see some significant activization in this area in upcoming days. And when it comes to northern part of Kharkov region, another area of activities, big activities, well, Russian troops still are finalizing, according to reports, cleaning operations in the Vilcha settlement and Liman. Oh, this is Liman village, by the way, not the Liman city in DPR. In Liman settlements, I guess liberation of Volchansk, final push to liberate Volchansk, took quite a lot of energy from Russian advancing forces here, and probably they will need a little time to regroup, reorganize, to receive additional reinforcements, right? And then probably we will see final push to establish control over both these villages. Some channels in the Russia segment of internet, some sources were a little quick to announce that both these settlements are already under Russian control, Vilcha and Liman. But I'm not gonna say so. Russian troops are in both settlements, but I'm gonna exercise restraint for now. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if Russian troops are controlling these settlements. Big channels, sir, big military channels, sir, in Telegram, for example, did not yet reported about it. So let's wait. Let's wait. I think it is a probability that before end of this week, Liman will be under full Russian control, and maybe it will take a few more days to finalize clearing operation in Vilcha. And one should keep in mind that it's a little time consuming liberation of these settlements, because even before Volchansk was fully liberated by Russian forces, I was reporting about based on numerous sources, about reports, about information that Kiev regime was deploying significant number of whatever reserves they have towards Volchansk. They were desperate to maintain their presence in the city. They failed, and after that they were trying to concentrate these reserves exactly in the Vilcha area to maintain their foothold, at least in Vilcha, this village. And it's not just this village, but surrounding territory is also packed with some hostile troops, isn't it? And therefore, obviously, if you keep in mind that there is drones and artillery and everything, right? Of course, advance does take some significant time. In any ways, initiative is in Russian hands all along the front line. We should expect, I think, some major developments to happen soon in the Kherson direction, because I don't think Russian aviation and Russian artillery become disactive in this direction randomly. There is nothing that happens randomly on the battlefield, obviously. Probably some preparations are on the way, or maybe this is deception. Maybe Russian militaries want the regime to think that Russian troops are about to launch offensive in the Kherson direction, and that will force the regime to deploy more troops into Kherson area, isn't it? The troops that otherwise could be used on some other directions where maybe Russia is actually planning to conduct counteroffensive. So this is military matters is a science, isn't it? It's a science, and that's why I always highlight that I'm no military expert, right? And therefore, my reading of the big picture, my reading of or my understanding of developments on the battlefield should always be taken with a pinch of salt, because, yet again, I'm no military expert and never pretend to be, right? I am reporting about information that is known and sharing my takes, what we should expect, or what we might expect, right? Sometimes I'm correct, by the way, sometimes not, but this happens in any other field, isn't it? Sometimes we are correct, sometimes not. Depends on the level of our knowledge in the field, right? More we know, more often we are correct in our predictions. Anyways, this is it for a short summary, and so yes, let's short summary of the situation on the battlefield. Otherwise, I have like 2,000 of news to share with you, dear friends, still. So, okay, that's been said. Let's continue now with some other stuff. Well, yesterday, number of sources, dear friends, reported that there was a dogfight, right, between the Russian fighter pilot and the fighter pilot of Kiev regime, and the Russian fighter pilot come up on the top, and the Kiev regime lost another Su-27 fighter jet, and their pilot, Colonel Yevgeny Ivanov of Kiev regime's Air Force, was neutralized as a result of this air-to-air combat. Russian Defense Ministry, at least for now, did not share much information. You know how Russian Defense Ministry is, isn't it? They don't really share much information. Why, man? There was a successful air-to-air combat, isn't it? Use this success to, share information, boost morale, make a big story, because it is a big story, by the way, right? But yeah, Russian Defense Ministry just, has different priorities. They are focused on the battle, so I can understand, by the way. But I think this is a big story. I think this is a big story, by the way. And I would love to know more details about this particular air-to-air combat or any other air-to-air combat after special military operation. Of course, we will learn some more about it. And I remind you that according to many, many military experts and sources, a longest air-to-air kill was happened during the special military operation when either Russian Su-57 fifth gen fighter jet or MiG-31 fighter jet intercepted the Kiev regime's fighter planes some 200 kilometers, further than 200 kilometers. It was a very long shot, by the way, very long shot. Reports are that Russian hypersonic air-to-air missile was used for that interception. So I mean, there is so many stories, isn't it? So many stories of heroism of the militaries and superb professionalism that was demonstrated. And I guess after special military operation will end, we will learn some more because we need to know our heroes. By the way, Russian pilot who intercepted hostile fighter jet is a hero, obviously hero, right? And now we cannot say the name, and I understand why. By the way, Kiev regime is conducting terrorist attacks on Russian militaries, their family members, right? So therefore, information has to be classified for now. But time comes when we will learn. We will learn about thousands of acts of heroism that was committed by Russian troops on the battlefield, on the ground, at the sea, and also in the air. So good news for Russian Air Force, by the way. Yet another successful air combat. I wonder which Russian plane intercepted this Kiev regime's Su-27. Someday we will learn. And I think also interesting report that another two U.S. citizens were killed in a zone of special military operation. They were fighting alongside the Kiev regime. And also reports are that a Danish citizen was killed. Also, I can give you some details on that. So according to sources, two more U.S. citizens, Brian Lionel Zackerley and T. Wingett Jones, who were fighting on side of the Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, were killed by Russian fighters in SMO zone. And their Danish citizen Tristan Karl Pedersen was also neutralized. Well, it is what it is. I cannot say, because I don't know, were these mercenaries members of the U.S. military, U.S. special forces, or Danish special forces, or they were actual mercenaries. They just signed up for some, they went in Kiev control territory and expressed willingness to fight for the Kiev regime. I don't know the details yet, but well, yet another two U.S. citizens that were fighting alongside Ukrainian terrorists were eliminated, and another Danish citizen also. Overall number of Western citizens, let's say this way, that were neutralized on the battlefield there is in thousands now, by the way. Is in the thousands, right? Exact number, hard to tell. No one knows probably, with exception of maybe some few people. But it's in the thousands, and I'm saying so because if you paid attention, my friends, U.S. Colonel Douglas McGregor, U.S. retired highly decorated veteran Douglas McGregor, on several occasions said that Poland alone lost about 10 to 12,000 of its troops, disguised as mercenary, right, while fighting against Russia. So it is in the thousands, right? And it's not just Poland, by the way. It's all NATO countries, almost all NATO countries, that are sending their troops disguised as mercenaries to fight Russia, and all of them have a casualties. Most casualties outside of Poland is on part of from NATO, let's say, from NATO countries is on I think US and UK and France. I mean, these three countries are probably after the Poland, US, UK, and France. They lost quite a lot, hundreds of yeah troops. Yet again, this guy does mercenary, but it changes nothing. It's still their citizens, still their troops, right? Whatever they're gonna call them. So that's the report, sir, dear friends, and this is definitely not the last Western citizens that died by the ear while fighting alongside the terrorists. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, media outlets have revealed their new U.S. plan for Russia. Interesting. This deception operation never ends, isn't it? That Western elites are coming up constantly. And I will go through details. By the way, there is also so much to unpack in this area. But you know what? First of all, what I want to do is let me drop in a YouTube chat. Let me drop in a YouTube chat link to my Rumble channel again. So it should be visible now on Rumble. And if it's convenient enough to you, dear friends, please switch to my Rumble channel. This might help further develop Rumble, and will be nice. Only I can see only one comment on Rumble. Come on, man, let's be a little more active. Mickey is commenting on Rumble. Good morning, Levan and everyone. Thank you very much. Good morning to you and to everyone. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time is in your part of the world. And yes, dear friends, if it's not too difficult, just click that link on YouTube in the chat, and you will open Rumble. Right? It's a help. It's a help, So, okay, that's been said. Let's continue now. How long is this live stream? It's already an hour, and I can feel this. I'm getting a little tired, but yes, so much news to unpack, man. Still, only 128 members are online on watching right now on YouTube, which is unfortunate, by the way. Why is that? There are still some live streams in big channels or something. Probably it is. But anyways, let's continue with some other news, dear friends. And as I said, this deception operation continues, isn't it? Deception that Western ruling class is coming up against Russia constantly. Latest big deception operation is this Trump's 28-point peace plan that is no longer 28 points. No one knows how many points are there, but her plan still allegedly exists, right? And it's a pure deception. Washington, London, other capitals in the West are trying to paint the picture that they are conflicting each other in regards to this plan, but same time, I mean, they are all for peace, right? Especially Washington plays this game that they are so good, man. I mean, they are angels. They are now for peace, right? They want to de-escalate with Russia. They come up with this so-called national security strategy. I mean, garbage that don't worth money that it's printed on a paper, right? It's a total toilet paper. That's what that national security or whatever strategy is, right? In which White House writes that, well, they want to establish, relationships with Russia and de-escalate and this and that. Total garbage, by the way, right? Total garbage. Some people are taking this nonsense seriously, man, and I struggle to understand why. I mean, how anyone can think that anything that Washington writes on a paper or says in terms of de-escalating with Russia is true. How anyone can believe this shit, man? I mean, honestly, how anyone can take Washington seriously? Come on, man, right? It's not possible, man. But yes, there is a this is also part of deception operation, isn't it? On the first stage of this new deception operation, there was this leak of Trump's 28-point peace plan, and you see how much noise was around this topic. Delegations were sent here and there, and they came to Moscow too. Everyone was talking about it. Then Europeans or globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe say no through Zelensky's mouth, right? Initially, when Zelensky said that, well, we're not gonna compromise in terms of giving up territories here and there. Then European regimes themselves said, you know what, we support the regime as long as it takes, and they start hinting that they have their own plan, right? Which is some 20-point plan or something. I mean, it's a joke, man. It's a freaking joker. Insult to our intellect, really. That's what it is, really. That they think they're gonna fool us, man. What the hell? What the hell? And to add some weight to this deception, just a few days ago, Washington came up with this national security strategy, isn't it? Some new paper that yet again is a toilet paper. It's worth nothing, right? Less than the paper that those words are written on. And in that national security strategy, yet again, I mean, Washington is highlighting that or hinting that we're going to rebuild relationships with Russia. We want de-escalation to happen, and they want even Europe to stand there strong, and relationships between Europe and Russia even to become a little better. Total freaking nonsense, you know. Total freaking nonsense. And first of all, because take a look at the policies. I said a million times before, talk is cheap, man. Talk is cheap. Trump can come up and say anything, man. You know, we know they know how to talk, right? We know they know how to talk. We know they have people who can write, so that these so-called leaders in the West then will read this stuff that were written by others, more clever elements. They can read it on the teleprompter or something, right? We know they can read and even write. And they have some brains, maybe 2 brain cells free, but still they have some brains, right? Okay. And sometimes they do talk some stuff, or most of the times, let's say this way, they talk some stuff to lie to others, to create false narratives. It's a part of deception operation, and this national security strategy is also part of this deception operation that was launched lately with the Trump's this so-called initiative. And well, even though most high-ranking officials here in Russia responded on this strategy and said, you know what, okay, there are some points there that we liked. That was quite a measured response from Russian side, but in a polite manner, right? Okay, that's diplomacy, isn't it? But hopefully none of them, neither in the Kremlin, neither in the foreign ministry or elsewhere, hopefully none of them believe a single freaking word, either in that strategy that are sort of positive or can be interpreted as something of positive. Hopefully no one will believe that shit, because it's a lie. It's a total lie. This is deception on part of Western world, and this deception gonna continue. This deception gonna continue. If necessary, they will do some freaking row between each other. Washington and London, Washington and Paris, Washington and Berlin will publicly start shouting at each other, even if they think that will help to fool Russia. And in some sense, that's what they do already. Maybe they are not really shouting at each other, but already expressing some criticism of each other, right? And this is a part of deception too, because you have to paint a picture, more or less believable picture, that there is some tensions inside the Western elites. You see, Washington is for the escalation, Europe is not, right? You see, so therefore Russia should trust Washington. But no, man, Russia should trust no one. Period. Neither Washington, neither London, Berlin, Paris, none of them, man. They are enemies. Period. They are enemies. That's it. But they continue. They continue the deception operation. They are using whatever tools they have in their disposal. And this report is exactly the part of it, right? So let me give you some details now. The new American national security strategy could lead to withdrawal from the North Atlantic Alliance and rapprochement with Russia. The Financial Times reports, goodness me, man, how many times we heard that US gonna withdraw from North Atlantic Alliance? I mean, seriously? This is insult to the intellect of the humanity, isn't it? NATO is US, by the way. Without US, there is no freaking NATO. I mean, well, why or how US going to withdraw from something that only exists because of the US's presence there? Right? It's a North Atlantic Alliance. Without US, there is no North Atlantic Alliance. There is no freaking NATO. Correct? But you see, they need this deception. They need to create a picture. They want to paint a picture through whatever tools they have, including MSM, including their propaganda means, Financial Times in this particular case, to fool everybody, right? They can, especially Moscow. That, tensions between Washington and London are real, believe us, it's real. And the Europeans are bad, European elites, and we are good. I mean, we won't deal with you, right, Moscow? But, take a look, those bad guys, man, they don't. And to put some weight on this nonsense, these kind of articles being popping up here and there, that, well, these tensions might lead, and now also this so-called national security strategy might lead US from withdrawing from NATO, which is total nonsense, by the way, and towards a rapprochement with Moscow, which is also nonsense, right? There is not even theoretical chance of that. Let's be real here. There is not even a theoretical chance that they're going to be any rapprochement between these criminals that are in charge of the US and the Russian Federation. There is not even a slight chance of that. And such a chance will never exist until American people will actually reclaim their own freaking country, build a system, decent one, not this corrupt shit that they have right now, but a real system that will serve the people, right? And until American people will build a new decent elites, they're going to be no rapprochement between Moscow and Washington. Not happening, not possible. Period. Correct? And same can be said about any other Western country. Absolutely. So therefore, my hope is that no one, by the way, in the Kremlin, in the foreign ministry, and their other decision-making institutions here in Russia gonna fail for this lies, man, that West is throwing towards Russia on daily basis. We're not gonna fail for this shit, man. No way. We cannot. We have no right to fail to this deception. But I can give you some quotes here from Financial Times. If this logic is consistently implemented, the result could be the United States withdrawal from the NATO, a break with the current European governments, and the strategic rapprochement with Russia. Publication states, according to Observer, the new American doctrine represents an ultimatum from the United States to Europeans intended to ensure that the countries of the old world approve of the White House's policies. Okay, by the way, it's total garbage, right? Total garbage, and I would love to see little more direct talk from Russian leadership, of course, about all these deception operations. Yes, diplomatically, politely, right? But I would love to see Russian high-ranking officials are saying, you know what, we appreciate that there is some statements made that they want to Washington allegedly wants to de-escalate with Russia and find common grounds, and we appreciate that they are talking about peace constantly. I mean, that's good, but at the same time, we are living in a real world, right? In where talk is cheap. And when it comes to policies of Washington, we would like to see according changes in the policies too, according to their statements. And unfortunately, we did not see it yet. I mean, it would be good if someone, Ripko, deputy or foreign minister, or other deputy, or even foreign minister, will say, I mean, yes, it is good that you are talking some sensible stuff time to time, but what about your policies now? What about your policies? When it comes to your policies, you know what is going on, Washington? You know what is going on? You just allocated, you just drafted the bill to allocate another 100 million for a Kyiv regime for 2026, 2027 for military aid, and this is just through Pentagon line, right? This number can increase tenfold or 20 times or 30 times, right? In a month or 2 months time. So therefore, we see policy. I mean, you talk a lot, Washington, about peace and the escalation with Moscow, but what we see is your policies in which you are allocating more money to prolong this proxy war against Russia. You transfer according to Mark Rutte, dear friends, isn't it? According to Mark Rutte, US already transferred weapons worth 4 billion, at least 4 billion, in just past several months, by the way, since the Trump's inauguration, right? Weapons worth 4 billion was transferred from US to Kyiv regime, right? These weapons were paid by European countries. But what does it change for Russian side? It's American weapons, isn't it? It's still American weapons. US still provides intelligence to Kyiv regime, this terrorist regime, right? Intelligence which is then used to strike deep inside the Russian territory with the assistance of those NATO countries, and as a result of these attacks, Russian civilians being harmed. Not just Russian militaries that are risking their lives literally every day, but Russian civilians are harmed. And in the beginning of the live stream, I reported that in Cherkasy alone, 14 civilians were hurt, injured as a result of this long-range strike that was most likely conducted while being, with use of US intelligence. So that's what is going on, isn't it? On one hand, there is all sorts of talks. On the other hand, there is policies. And when it comes to policies, well, US is still a leading country in this proxy war against Russia. And nothing has changed in this regard. US was a leading country in this proxy war against Russia during the Biden's administration, and US is still leading country in this proxy war during the Trump's administration. Even if the rhetoric of the Trump and Biden are different, policies are the same, right? Policies are the same. They might wrap up these policies in whatever paper they want, in whatever narrative they want, but it's still the same. US is still leading country in this proxy war against Russia. It is what it is. And no one can argue with this. No one can argue with this, right? Dear friends, I do have quite a lot of news left. Maybe headlines. Yesterday, there was a meeting in London between Merz, Macron, Stammer, and Zelensky, acting, by the way. Why they are continue to act this crazy, I don't know. What they pretend word for word, I mean, what they want world to see. Everyone understands Zelensky is freaking nobody, right? Everyone understands that this Merz, Macron, Stammer, these are freaking puppets of the globalists, right? They are nobodies. You can see on your screen 4 nobodies. Literally 4 nobodies, by the way, right? And I'm a bit sick and tired of seeing these freaking nobodies in the news day in, day out. What the hell, man? And how I'm going to comment seriously on this garbage, I don't know. So they get together in the Downing Street 10 in London, and they're acted as if they are important and their decisions have some importance for anybody, right? While in reality, they are just freaking puppets, and the decisions are made by very different people elsewhere, right? And they've been just given orders after that. You will say this, you will say this, sir, and you will implement this policy, and you will sign up for this paper. Do it or else. That's all it is, right? So yes, there was a gathering of this these nobodies, man. In London, Zelensky, of course, every other day says that there are not gonna be no concessions with Russia. They're not gonna withdraw troops from nowhere. Zelensky basically declined Trump's 28-point peace plan. And I guess, and it's not Zelensky, it's a globalist, isn't it? And maybe their game plan is to, or initial game plan was that initially Trump is coming up with this 28-point peace plan, and then gradually, if they manage to lure Russia into this trap of discussions around this plan, they will gradually shift it towards globalists' plan, right? And Stammer, I believe, or someone from European elites already said that they have alternative plan. They're going to come up with alternative plan, which is like 20 point or something, in which is demand from Russia to capitulate. Basically, that's what this globalist plan is, right? So it's total nonsense. It's a total nonsense. One should also keep in mind that these creatures, not just Macron, Stammer, Merz, Trump, or Zelensky, and others that formally are leaders of these Western countries, but most importantly, creatures that are behind them, is filth of humanity that is actually decision makers, right? That are actually decision makers. They are desperate because they are losing, man. They are losing this war. They are desperate and they want some freaking break. They won't break. And because they are not getting nowhere with their deception operations, they are becoming more and more desperate, more and more demanding from their puppets. And that's why their puppets, and that is Trump, Stammer, Macron, Merz, Meloni, all the others, by the way, are behaving, if you notice, by the way, behaving more and more crazy because, their boss is demanding, man, results, and they cannot deliver. And if they did not deliver, by the way, they are finished. If they don't deliver, they are finished, man. And out of desperation, they are acting more and more crazy. It's just visually noticeable, isn't it? They're gonna achieve nothing, man. They are done. Western elites, Western ruling class is finished. It's a matter of time, or they don't really deserve this much attention, to be honest. But unfortunately, they are in charge of, directly or indirectly, but they are in charge of entire collective West, man, and it's hard to ignore. It's hard to ignore. Vzglyad newspaper, and by the way, to prolong this proxy war against Russia, they need money, isn't it? They need money, and they come up with new idea how to steal Russian money. They're gonna freeze it permanently. That's the new idea that they have. They will freeze Russian assets permanently, and they think no one will call it stealing, and they will take it then, right? Use whatever ways they want, and the world will. They think probably the world will ignore this. World will understand nothing and will just ignore this, right? It's not happening, but yet again, the level of stupidity of these people that are in charge of the West is just beyond anything we have seen ever, right? And therefore, we should expect more and more stupid, moronic moves from their side. not just uh, activization of a terror campaign that Western elites always use, especially when they are losing. They love to use terror campaigns, by the way, historically speaking, but also some moronic decisions in terms of policies that they're gonna adopt, gonna be like beyond anything that we have seen till now. Like this idea that well, they're gonna now froze assets permanently forever, garbage. No one gonna say they stole it because well, they freeze it, forever. I cannot talk about this shit seriously. They are filth, man. They are filth. Western elites, Western ruling class is a filth. Literally, I mean, they should not exist, man. It's a I don't know, man. Это позор человечества, что они существуют. I said in Russian, it's a shame on humanity that these creatures, by the way, exist, and they've been called humans, man. What the hell, man? This is insult to humanity that this kind of morons actually exist, man. Anyways, let's continue with whatever else I have bookmarked. I'm getting a little tired, by the way. It's like 1.5 hour. 1.5 hour, by the way, and Orban once again reiterated that EU intends to accept Ukraine and start a war with Russia by 2030. This time around, he wrote this on his Facebook, I believe. Yes, he wrote this on his Facebook, and this is not the first time when Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, is saying that Europe is preparing to launch a war against Russia, preparing for a war, and this is true. They do. Globalist control regimes in Europe, Western ruling class basically, is preparing European countries for a war against Russia. It's just visible, right? We can see it based on their policies, right? Militarization policies and everything else. But I think Viktor Orban is miscalculating some stuff because by 2030, Europe is going to be, seriously broke and not going to be able to launch no war against probably nobody and no one country. By 2030, Europe is going to be extremely depressed, right? And the Kiev regime not going to last this long. This is also something to keep in mind. Kiev regime, most likely, and I'm not saying Zelensky's regime. Zelensky might be finished in next month or two, or I don't know. Maybe he would not last in presidential office until even spring or summer of 2026. So therefore, I'm not saying Zelensky's regime. I'm saying Kiev regime, this Western-controlled Kiev regime, will not last probably even before end of 2026. Maybe it will touch on 2027, but that's it, man. That's max. I don't see Kiev regime existing in 2028. Not a chance, not even slight chance, by the way, right? So therefore, globalists, out of desperation, if they will dare to launch an open conflict with Russia, they will do it in 2026, maybe 2027, before Russia finalizes its special military operation. Yet again, let's make it also clear that even if and when Europe will launch open war with Russia, even then Russian special military operation will be success and Russia will be victorious anyways, right? Europe has no chances, but just no chances, right? It's not going to be easy fight, obviously, for Russia to neutralize this psychopathic intents and their steps of Europe, but it's doable, and Russia will do it. Russia has done it before, and will do it again, right? It will be difficult, obviously, but nevertheless, Russia is going to be victorious. I understand this. I think no one has any doubts about it here in Russia, at least, right? I don't know about other parts of this world, but here we have no doubts. Bring it on, man. We will take on them, and we will beat crap out of them, man. That's how it's gonna be, man. Right? No doubts. But yet again, if they will dare to launch a open conflict with Russia, they will do it either in 2027 or 2026 or in 2027 before Russia completely eliminates this terrorist regime of Kiev and their Western terrorist assets on the Russian territory. And while saying Russian territory, I mean whole of Ukraine, with the exception of western parts of it. That also historically Russian land, but demography there and many other things are in such a way that I don't think Russia has any, either now or in the future, will have any intent to take control of the Western Ukraine. No. Let the West deal with the Western Ukraine. Let the Western world deal with the Nazis and the fascists and the terrorists that they breed in the Western Ukraine and all over the Ukraine, because they will be concentrated in the Western Ukraine when Russian troops reach borders of Western parts of this former Soviet Republic, right? So let the European countries taste how it is to deal with those Nazis and the fascists, right? I have some doubts that they be able to digest it, those European countries, but let them try. No, let them try, right? Deal with the situation, but rest will be liberated, obviously. Rest of their territory, and it does not matter if Europe will launch an open war against Russia or not. This will happen anyways, right? Russia will liberate all Russian territories anyway, and Russia will liberate all Russian people anyways. That's it, man, right? If Europeans get involved there, they will be smashed also, right? And much easier than and that fight with Europeans, even though nothing is easy, right, when it comes to combat, but compared to fight that we had with our brainwashed brothers and sisters from Ukraine, fight with Europeans is gonna be like easy walk, man. I'm telling you. Fight with Europeans is gonna be like a freaking easy walk. It's gonna be different type of fight, man. Very different, right? For many reasons. And so, if Europeans want to experience that, okay, I think they can do it. We are here, man, and have no intent to go anywhere. So it is what it is. So Orban is miscalculating there. It's not going to be 2030. It's going to be 2026 or 2027. If globalist Western ruling class will actually dare to launch open war against Russia. This proxy war is already ongoing, right? And Western countries are already directly engaged in hostilities against Russia, but it's still proxy war, right? If they want to launch open war, okay, let them try, man. Let them try, and they're gonna get smashed, man, in a way that, I'm saying quite often that give to 20, 30 years, and Europe gonna end up in a freaking dark place, man, very dark place. If European elites, if globalists or Western ruling class launches open war against Russia, then Europe gonna end up in a dark place much faster. In 5, 10, 15 years. Because they're gonna get smashed, by the way, in a way that they wouldn't be able to they're gonna have such damage on their psyche, first of all, that they will never recover from that. That's what we will do to them. I'm telling you, man. That's what we will do to them, man. We will destroy them psychologically in a way that they will never ever freaking recover. They will beg for death. That's how bad situation gonna be for them, man. Let them try. Let them try, man. They don't know that they are playing with fire, man. It seems like they are forgetting that they are playing with fire, man. And they're gonna burn themselves big time. And it's not just Orban that is saying that Europe is preparing for a war. Everyone is saying nowadays this. Almost everyone who pays any attention and maintains objectiveness, right? Me, many other commentators in alternative media, and there are also community, by the way, in alternative media, community members. But it's not just us, but also militaries, Russian militaries, for example, that are saying, yeah, man, it's coming, seems like, right? And we have to be ready. For example, Navy commander of Russia, a Navy commander-in-chief stated that US and EU are preparing for a possible confrontation with Russia in Arctics. Let me give you some details on his statement. So, statements by the American and European military and political leaders regarding the Arctic region confirms their Russophobic sentiments. In the past 2 years, Finland and Sweden have joined their anti-Russian hysteria. The main political statements note their increasing pace of militarization of the Arctic and their preparations for a possible military confrontation in the region under the pretext of defense against threats from Russia and China. Moiseev stated commander-in-chief of the Russian Navy, Alexander Moiseev, and he's on point there. He's on point, of course. Arctic is one of the places where we might see direct clashes between Western world and Russia, or Western world and the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is going to stand with Russia, by the way. The rest of the world is already with Russia, but unfortunately, many countries are still pretending to be freaking neutral, man. How are you going to be neutral, or how you can be neutral when you see Russia is fighting evil? Russia is fighting evil force that Western ruling class is, and you are saying that you are neutral? I mean, seriously? What the hell, man? I mean, that's what sometimes, when I think about it, that makes me mad. That all these Russian allies, by the way, right, are still playing some freaking games, and they're, in some cases, even afraid to say it as it is, man, that Russia is fighting evil force, and there can be no neutrality in this fight. We have to be next to Russia. We have to support Russia, and we have to defeat this evil force that Western ruling class is. That's it, man. Just say it, because it's true, man. It's true. And they will. They will, by the way. I mean, behind the closed doors or based on the policies. Okay, I mean, yet again, talk is cheap. Policies matter. And based on policies, you can see Russia has a lot of friends, man, worldwide. A lot of friends, right? Because cooperation is booming between Russia and countries in this world. Let's ignore collective West, man. It's just like tiny part of this world, irrelevant, right? But the rest of the world is huge, and we have great deal of cooperation with dozens of countries, and that proves my point that they are supporting Russia. They know Russia is on the right side of history. Russia is fighting evil force. But for whatever reason, they are playing this politics, right? And they are too cautious, man, to say openly that in this existential struggle between good and evil, we're going to stand and fight with good, which is Russia. That's it, man. That's it. A lot of news still left, by the way. And you know what? Maybe I will leave rest of the news for next update. And they are interesting ones also. But yeah, yet again, I don't want this live stream to be like 2 hours long. And it's going to be 2 hours long if I don't end it now. And so, okay, let's do it. Так. Let me check. Let me check. By the way, so I see now there is no super chat on Rumble, dear friends. Let me check Boosty right now. Maybe there was some questions from Boosty. No, no questions from Boosty, and I guess there was no questions from PayPal either. Otherwise, I think Anna would give me. We will send to me a screenshot. So, dear friends, I guess this is it for today's live stream. Well, right now I see right now I see a super chat from Blorp on Rumble. Dear friends, let me highlight her. Let me highlight. Thank you very much, Blorp, for your super chat on Rumble. I will highlight this right now on YouTube. It's not easy, isn't it? When you're gonna monitor several channels simultaneously, several windows, programs, and it takes time. It takes time. So let me highlight this. Thank you very much, Blorp, for your super chat on Rumble and their $5 donation. And Blorp commented, "Zoinks, uh, Zoinks." I did not get it really, Zoinks, or maybe it's like. Thank you very much, Blorp. Thank you very much for your support, for your attention. Uh, it's something good. I have no doubts. This means something positive. Good, Zoinks. It's a thanks. It, you know, thank you very much. Thank you, a blorper and. Okay. Blorp is commenting. It's just a meaningless word from Scooby Doo cartoon. Okay. Zoinks. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Blorp, for your super chat and attention. I appreciate it. And dear friends, I will be before I go. I will remind you that we have a big community chats on Sunday. I might do big community chats on Saturdays too. Last big community chat was great, wonderful, right? And during those community chats, I'm engaged with the community, and I'm going through all the questions that and comments that I can that are directed to me, and I see them, not necessarily just from PayPal, Boosty, or Super Chat, just questions in the chat also, obviously. Other days, in order to make these live streams a little shorter, I'm reacting on comments from Super Chat and support platforms, as many other or all the other channels do. By the way, probably there is very few channels that are engaged in community that have something like community chat that we have, right? Usually, it's only Super Chats that channels are reacting, but I'm doing stuff a little differently, and these big community chats are exactly as it sounds. It's community chat, so we just talk about anything we want, right? So okay, dear friends, thank you all. If you come across some short clips of mine from this live stream, please, if you have time, like those videos. Might be helpful. And okay, if not some major developments during the day, that's about it for today, I guess. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and bye for now.